Okay, Pratik, thanks for a quick introduction, and let me thank everybody for taking this initiative, volunteering to be here and have a discussion on, and let everybody know what your thoughts are, especially from a technology perspective and how it plays a vital role in banking and finance. As an introduction, let me ask you all to just begin by introducing yourself in terms of what you've done as part of your internship process, and how do you think technology plays a vital role in terms of maybe compliance, or how it can give a competitive edge uh, in the overall banking and finance industry. So can I ask the panelist in the corner there to begin, and we'll take the round of introductions sequentially, and then we'll go to the next round wherein we speak about or dwell deeper into the aspects of technology.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. I'm Debeshri Mustafi. My internship was with HDFC Bank, wherein I was trained under the Department of FD Penetration. During this period, I actually learned that other than CASA, FD also plays a very important role when it comes to the liabilities of a bank. And that is why technology would actually play a very significant role in managing FD. Since FD is directly linked to the liquidity aspect of a bank, it is very important to manage FD and simultaneously manage the liquidity risk, because liquidity risk has been one of the major risks that a bank faces. So in today's discussion, I would like to cover this aspect wherein technology could be used to manage the liabilities of a bank and at the same time tackle liquidity risk.
Hi everyone, I am Paul Rohit. So firstly, I would like to thank our mentor, Mr. Arun Ramanath sir in college for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this panel. I was fortunate enough to be assigned as an intern with New Vision Software Solutions. My training involved working in financial domain as business analyst and also gave me a clear understanding of financial technology. Concepts like data visualization was a great addition to my skill set. Also, working closely with the business heads gave me a clear insight about the role of business analyst in information technology engagements. So during the course of my internship, I realized technology, when used in the context of risk management, leads to increased efficiency.
Good morning to one and all present here. My name is Nidhi and I have completed my internship with Cholamandalam Investment and Finance. I have interned under the Equity Research Department. So I had a wonderful experience there and I had a lot of practical exposure to the theoretical concepts what we have learned here. I was also exposed to the Bloomberg terminal. During the course of my internship, what I had to look upon every day was this concept called research. I believe it has a wide or a broad perspective to look from. For example, like how we research about the company stocks and recommend them to the clients, banks and financial institutions also research about their clients before identifying them as credit worthy or not. Similarly, speaking in terms of liquidity or marketability, banks and financial institutions also identify or research about the various technological systems in place or they need to have in place in order to mitigate such risks. So today I would like to throw some light on the various risks that banks are exposed to and what they do to minimize them.
Hi everyone, I'm Gaurav Bhandari. It feels great to be a part of this esteemed panel. So I interned with one of India's leading private sector bank, HDFC Bank, at one of their retail branches. The areas under my purview were KYC documentation and daily operations of the bank. During the course of my internship, I worked closely with the operations department and I got to observe how technology and modern softwares are shaping up the operations side of the bank.
Good morning, I'm Ashwini Joshi. As part of my summer internship, I interned with India's leading public sector banks, which is Bank of India. As part of the internship, I worked in the operations as well as the credit appraisal department. In the internship, I saw how technology and various softwares played a major role in simple transactions and operations like depositing of a check or withdrawing cash. While in case of credit appraisal, softwares were used wherein various inputs were put into the software which would decide whether to give the loan to the proposer or no. As part of the internship, I did not directly work in the market risk management domain, but I'm very much intrigued by the subject and would like to voice my opinions in the same as part of this panel.
Hi everyone, I'm Prachi Bavishi and I interned with JP Morgan Chase and Company in their valuation control group. During the course of my internship, I observed that they perform every single activity with the help of specialized softwares. This reduces the possibility of errors and frauds. But one of the major threats that I feel corporates are facing today is in the form of phishing scams. For most of us who've watched the Netflix original Jamtara, wherein we observed that a dozen mobile phones and a couple of computer systems were used to siphon off money. This would pose a threat on the internal processes of the organization and cyber security. So I'll be talking about it later in detail.
Thanks everybody for a quick round of introduction and your opening statements. I think the one that's caught my attention, and I'm sure caught everyone's attention in the audience over here, is what Prachi just mentioned in terms of the Netflix series Jamtara. So I think I will ask her to begin on her views on how that Jamtara as a whole played out, and where she sees technology has played a role or can play a better role in terms of mitigating the overall risk. So over to Prachi.
I feel technology could have prevented the fraud. So in case of Jamtara, like we see, a number of red flags were raised, which could have been avoided had they established an association or a link between these closely connected groups of individuals using, say, their location or purchase product history or other demographic variables for that instance. So when we talk about data visualization, like he mentioned, we can talk about link analysis, wherein you're establishing a link between these variables in the data set. And you could use something like, for example, telephone records in this case, and you will find out the level of association between these variables, and this will reduce the possibility of errors and also uncover information if required. But what works out here is understanding that there's going to be a lot of technological application, so we would focus more on the prevention aspect of it rather than the detection aspect of it.
Sir, if you don't mind, I would like to jump here because I would like to add to what Prachi said. So given that there were a lot of red flags being raised as mentioned by Prachi, but as such there was no action being taken against him. So because of action not being taken, this is a clear case of operation framework failure. Also, Prachi was mentioning about a lot of fraud detection techniques, but I feel fraud detection is the postmortem of what actually happened. If you look in the case of Jamtara, where fraud was being detected, but nothing as such was being done, money was being siphoned from the victim's account to the fraudster account. So I feel these transactions can be detected and prevented. So that's where fraud prevention comes into picture. So this is one such topic which has been which I was interested in since a very long time. So while going through the data on internet, I came across a lot of companies like Alaric, TreatMetrix, and Forter, and many other companies which are working on real-time fraud prevention, maybe with respect to cyber security, KYC monitoring, or watchlist monitoring. But as such, there was no much information which was available, so I will not be able to elaborate much on this. But this is one area which interests me a lot, and I would like to dive deep into this.
That's interesting. I think we've covered one very important aspect, maybe the fraud detection and prevention, and it's so nice to know that we're able to draw a distinction between detection, which is more of a post-mortem kind of an analysis, and prevention, which can actually stop things from happening. I'm glad to see that. Now, given that we've looked at the prevention and detection pieces, and I also hear you say some things like there were a lot of red flags that were raised. And Gaurav did mention that he was interested in talking on the operational aspect of things. So if I can move to Gaurav at this point in time.
Yeah, so I believe that operation risk has become a major threat to banks, not just in India, but also worldwide. Operation risk management mainly relies on the operation risk framework adopted by the bank. Under RBI guidelines and norms, banks are required to maintain specialized world-class softwares which are very sophisticated for managing their risk. So these softwares use tools like loss data, both internal as well as external, RCSA, which is risk control and self-assessment, and various other scenarios for raising red flags in case of any operational risk has been identified. So this is just related to the identification or the detection part of it. What I feel is once these red flags are raised, these need to be translated into separate cases, which are then individually reviewed and proper action is taken in real time. Taking cues from Prachi's mention of Jamtara, there were a few instances where red flags were raised. So one instance was when there was a collusion between the fraudsters and the bank employees, another being money mules being used by the fraudsters. So in both the cases, red flags were definitely raised, but no action was taken in real time, which could have actually avoided the frauds which took place as the story unfolded. Even the very famous case of Nirav Modi. So over the years, there were a lot of red flags were raised, but I don't think any corrective action was taken in time, but which ultimately led to the major scam. Banks do have a proper system established where fraud can be detected and monitored, but the action side is missing. For this purpose, I believe that banks can adopt a system of active case management and action management. So case management will help the banks in handling the cases which are related to fraud and their proper closure. When it comes to action management, these can help in the daily operations of the bank.
Thanks, Gaurav. I think that was a very vital point that's been brought in. Technology does play an enabler. So there's a lot of things that's going to come out in terms of, as rightly pointed out, there are going to be red flags that are going to be raised. But are we acting upon it? Are we doing anything in terms of taking those red flags and alerts to a logical closure? So that's something that needs to be dwelled upon. So the role of action management, case management is going to be very vital going forward. So I think there's a very vital perspective that's been brought in over here to the overall panel discussion, and we need to look at the TATs in terms of closures. So that's something that one should keep in mind. Given that, I think we need to look at the other aspects of risk as well. So if I may want to move to Nidhi, if you can bring in some flavor in terms of aspects of risk in technology other than the ones that we've discussed, especially AML, fraud and ops, if there could be some other angle that you can bring in.
Thank you, sir. As rightly put forward by Gaurav, there are various action management and case management required to identify the key risk indicators and mitigate operational risks. I think by automating most of the processes through systems like cloud computing, RPA, etc., technologies have already made banks and financial institutions so efficient that they have provided them with a mechanism or a framework that we can call to that will enable them to identify their financial exposure and accordingly calculate their risks. What is a must over here would be where banks and financial institutions are able to identify that potential threat of non-repayment by their counterparty, that is what we call credit risk. So do they have proper credit? How do they mitigate credit risks would be the question here. They have sophisticated models that support their decision making. So these credit risk models are so efficient, technologically efficient, or they must be technologically efficient that they are able to cover all perspectives of the lending process. So they should be able to measure the capital requirements, the impairment provisions, forecasting, stress testing, etc. So it's just not about regulatory compliance anymore. I think banks and financial institutions are moving forward to actually mitigating such kind of risks. Similarly, speaking in terms of liquidity, I think banks keep a constant check on their asset liability management, on their liquidity coverage ratio, on their net stable funding ratio. In fact, in April 2020, it's expected that the LCR Delegated Act is expected to align the international regulations with the liquidity management. So in my opinion, I think it's going to be more challenging for banks in terms of being technologically efficient, because they would now be expected to provide more granular data sets to their regulators. So do we have that much technology in place, or do we have efficient technology in place to cover that? That is something I would like to read on. Similarly, speaking in terms of profitability, we all know that there's a strategic decision-making model called the FTP, or the fund transfer pricing model. So is that efficient enough for them to keep a check on their profitability is also something I would like to further read on. Speaking in terms of market risks, I think market is highly volatile considering the current circumstances. So do banks and financial institutions have efficient technological systems in place, to keep and monitor their market risks and to mitigate them? I would like to focus on those for the time.
Nidhi, thanks for that. Thanks for the insight provided. I think you've quite a lot of points that have been covered through your discussion. You have touched upon various aspects of risk. But one key takeaway which I can pick from what you just said is probably we're not looking at only compliance as the theme. Can we look at using technology for competitive advantage is what I can pick from what you just said. Another key takeaway or aspect that I see as part of your discussion is compliance till date was fairly easier, given that the data volumes were pretty much in check. With data volumes increasing and more micro level management or micro level reporting to be done with the voluminous data, we're going to need technology because there's a lot of granular data that needs to be looked into. So on that note, if I may move to Ashwini to probably give her views on whether it's just compliance or do you think banks can do something different to be able to give them a competitive advantage? We'd be glad to hear from you.
Okay, talking about market risk, we know that it plays a major role in the risk management mechanism of a bank. Being students of banking and finance, we already know the traditional measures of VAR, which are historical simulation and Monte Carlo simulation. Now, in this advent of banking and financial institutions where things are moving at a very fast pace, it is necessary that a better VAR mechanism comes into place. So, in today's age, real-time VAR is the concept that is being explored by many individuals all over the world. So, it's basically basically calculating VAR on real-time basis on the positions that the bank takes in, say, forex markets or derivative markets or equity markets. So, technology and softwares will play a critical role in calculating this real-time VAR, as technology and softwares will be able to process large, huge amounts of data in seconds, and hence it will help in reducing the worst case scenario losses for banks. So technologies like AI, ML or any other programming language is being explored into to facilitate the calculation and the streamlining of real-time VAR.
So thanks, Ashwini. I think the common theme that we are seeing that's coming out of the overall discussion is technology is kindly constantly scaling up. There's a need to look at data more efficiently, which is going to enable decision making. As she said, we're looking at VAR from compliance perspective, but we can also use VAR as a decision making tool. So that's a very interesting aspect that's been brought out by Ashwini. I heard Dibyashri is the only panelist, I think, who's left to present her views. I heard you say things around FD penetration is what you did as part of your internship. So if you can just throw light on how do you see that from a technology perspective and what role does it play?
Yes, so sir, like Nidhi had mentioned earlier, that technology does play a very important role in liquidity risk, and she also covered the aspect of FTP. On the similar lines, I would like to cover another concept along with FTP, which is ALM. So during my internship, when I was training under the Department of FD penetration, and I learned that it is one of the major liabilities other than CASA. I also realized that ALM is very important for a bank. ALM, as an asset liability management, would actually help the bank to match its assets and liabilities based on the maturity as well as the amount, so that in the long run the banks do not face any mismatch or shortage of liquidity. The same way, FTP or fund transfer pricing is a technology which could help banks to calculate or ascertain the hidden cost that they would incur in the transfer of funds, and in the same way they would be able to price their products better, which would increase their profitability and also maybe give them a competitive advantage when compared to other organizations.
Thanks everybody for the views presented. If I were to just sum this up, I would say that we've covered all the aspects of risk, maybe both from, or if I were to split it into risk and finance, we've covered aspects around the risk as well as finance. We began with stating things around financial crime and compliance. If I were to slot Rohit and Prachi into financial crime and compliance, mainly from an AML and fraud perspective. Going forward, we've looked at the other aspects in terms of credit risk, market risk, operational risk as well, which was brought out by Gaurav. And then we ended up looking at the financial aspects when it comes to the asset liability management and fund transfer pricing mechanism. I think we've had a holistic coverage, and there's a lot of thought that's gone into the overall mechanism from a technology perspective, mainly for banking and finance. So I think there's a lot of inputs that's there, and I would urge the audience also to look or dwell deeper into this. If there are any questions at this point in time for any of the panelists, I would request, probably we would have time to pick up a couple of questions going forward. So if I can, anybody who wants to raise a question from the audience can probably raise your hand. Yeah, the one there. If you can just pass the mic, please.
So there was a mention about transactional monitoring during the panel discussion. If you could just throw some light on that, and also how it is, helpful in fraud prevention. If you could give some.
So is your
inputs on
question directed to Rohit? Can I
yeah,
get?
since he mentioned it, I think it'll be
Okay.
great to hear from you.
So Rohit, can you just pass the mic?
So transaction monitoring is basically monitoring customer transactions and also assessing his historical and current transactions to basically analyze the customer. So there are a lot of techniques which are used to in real time to do this transaction monitoring. Just to give an example, one of them being statistical analysis. So in statistical analysis, what they do is they take the data of the customer's transactions from the past and they create trends, and they compare those trends with the current day transactions, and if there are any differences in between those two, action is being taken against him. So even me being a student, I can't say exactly what exactly is happening in the industry, but I feel this is a way in which transaction monitoring is done, and this is one of the techniques which is being used to do the transaction monitoring thing.
Yep.
So there was a mention about the pricing of the products, as Debashri mentioned. So I just wanted to ask that how FTP will play an active role in pricing of the products.
So FTP is actually a very interesting concept that I've come across recently, and FTP would help the banks to ascertain hidden costs, because when banks accept deposits from its customers, it gives them a particular rate of interest. But at the same time, those funds are not left idle. Instead, the banks transfer those funds to their funding unit or the treasury and also receive a rate of interest on the same. Similarly, on the other hand, if there's a customer who has approached the bank for a certain amount of loan, and the bank would actually approach their funding unit or the treasury for funds at a certain rate of interest. So when the bank gets a loan from the funding unit at a certain rate of interest, it would then transfer the funds as a part of loan to the customer. So here it is very important to understand the aspect that if a bank is providing 4% deposit to its 4% interest on the deposits to its customers, it is also receiving maybe a higher margin, maybe 6% from the funding unit. And on the other hand, when a bank is providing loan to a customer at 10% rate of interest, it is actually getting those funds from the funding unit at an 8% rate of interest maybe. So here this technology would actually help the bank to find out the costs that it would incur for the transferring of funds from deposits toward loans. And that way they can price the products in a better way so that they gain a profitability or a competitive edge.
Yeah, thanks Dibashri to take that. Just to add to what Dibashri said and to give you more insights on the overall pricing mechanism, there are multiple aspects that go into it. So one is from a risk perspective, credit risk plays a very vital role when it comes to pricing. But if you were to look at pure play asset liability management, fund transfer pricing mechanism, there's a lot of match to maturity concept that brings in. So I would urge you all to read on that as well as to how this is done, how the match to maturity concept plays a role, wherein asset liability management and fund transfer pricing has a close synergy in terms of pricing your products. So as she rightly said, we're looking at deposits, we're looking at loans, how the margin is there, how's the central funding unit. So there's this, if you were to look at it at a macro level, this is done more from a match maturity perspective, and there could be a lot of incentivizing that's done to the branches to promote a specific type of product. So you can even tie up your incentives to that. So it's not only pricing, but also the incentivization and overall appraisal mechanism that can be tied into it. So on that note, I would like to thank the panelists and the audience.